Welcome back, everybody, to this series discussion about the Caraval Trilogy by Stephanie Garber. Now, I have a few things to address before we get started on what is effectively part two of this. I would like to say three-parter, but it may very well be four parts, depending on how much I feel like I have to say once we've finished finale. Point number one. In the past video, I had on this warm light, it was evening, and I have to apologize for that decision. Okay, the lighting quality was pretty poor, so if you're actually watching this video, you'll have noticed that the camera struggled to focus on me. I have resolved initially only to record myself during the daytime when there is natural light to help with the clarity of the camera. And then secondly, to buy some proper tree lights. Okay, we are actually in my garage. Okay, I've run an extension cord out. There is a ring light. There's the webcam. But we're going to get some lighting trees. So I apologize that the visual quality of the last episode wasn't as it could have been. I hope you appreciate the fact that we have come back on a new day with some natural light outside and better lighting around me. Full stop. This isn't going to be the final setup I use on this channel, but we're learning, we're moving along, and it was my first proper time using this webcam camera. So sorry, not sorry. I'm doing the best I can. Okay. The next thing I wanted to mention was continuity. Okay, I had planned to do my hair and my makeup and wear the same stuff for all of the videos. But I then realised because I had recorded at night yesterday, my options were either record only at night or just sack it off completely. But I'd already committed, I'd already done my makeup by the time I watched parts of yesterday's recording. So my bad. You can see the vague attempt at keeping things consistent. And finally, a point that really annoyed me, I'm wearing a giant shirt, okay? I looked at the video and was like, oh my gosh, I look really wide, but it's this really big top, I promise. Once these videos are fully recorded, this is essentially going to be a 90. It goes down to my knees. So hopefully I look a little bit better today than I did in video one, because I was slightly horrified watching that back. I thought I looked great when the video started. The hair was a mistake, the look was a mistake, but we've committed to the look. And I used that hairstyle several times in some Bouger Book Talk videos, some earlier recordings for these short content sequences, and it looked fine. And then yesterday when I was watching the clip back, I was like, why is it all falling apart? I've had my hair cut and I didn't realize that obviously it's shorter, and it wasn't fully going into the clip. It wasn't giving what she wanted it to give, and it's her own fault. So this is what we've got for today. I don't think there's anything else I need to address. We're going to follow the same system where I'm just going to talk to you about what happens in Legendary, book 2 of the Caraval series. I think in the last video I kept calling it Legend. But you know what it's playing on? It's playing on the fact that his name's Legend, okay? I'm not wrong. I was just intentionally abbreviating. That's what it was. We're going to follow a similar structure, so I'm just going to talk about that book, what happens in it, and we're going to save in-depth evaluations of everything to when I've completed this series, because we want to discuss the series as a whole. It is a series of discussion. But are you not glad, seeing the length of the first video, that I didn't do in-depth analysis of anything during it? Because I have so much to say. So yes, we're going to follow the same system. This time, we're going to talk about Legendary. I will obviously share the opinions that I can't keep to myself during the video, but we're gonna have big talks at the end. Now, I am super excited to talk about Legendary with you all. Not because I like it so much more than Caraval. I think Caraval is fantastic. Actually, of the three, it might be my favorite. It's hard to say because they're all very good. But for those of you that have only read Once Upon a Broken Heart, this is where we meet Jax. For those of you who do not know who Jax, Prince of Hearts, is, this is the fan art that I keep on my Once Upon a Broken Heart and Caraval shelf. Okay? I have no pictures of any of the characters from the Caraval trilogy except for Jax. Literally. Now, if you've only read the Once Upon a Broken Heart books, that's fine. By all means, watch these videos to catch up and get context before reading the final book in that trilogy. But Stephanie Garber recently said that she doesn't believe in giving everyone a happy ending. She believes in giving people the endings they deserve. And the reactions from people who had only read Once Upon a Broken Heart and people who had actually read the Caraval trilogy to hearing this statement was very, very different. Because if you've only read Once Upon a Broken Heart, of course, like me, you're going to be in love with handsome man here, Jax. But you aren't fully aware of things he has done in the past, mainly during this book series. So I believe in people getting the endings they deserve, and had a little bit of a panic attack because, as you will see, Jax is not the hero of these books, putting it mildly. So let's go through book 2, which focuses far more on Donatella than Scarlet. Let's meet Jax. And when we get to the final book, we will hear of Evie. If you didn't know that's a thing, my sweet baby angel here, okay, we hear about her in the final book. Like, the story timelines overlap. So in this book, we are very, very much meeting pre-Once Upon a Broken Heart Jax. For those of you that are here for those reasons. Let me put him back on the shelf. My babies. I wonder how many people actually clocked that art is there in video number 1. Bet you didn't. Bet you didn't even notice them tucked up there. Well, that's where they live. So, let's get on with discussing Legendary Book 2 in the Caraval series, and a book that tells us an awful lot more than Book 1 does about the world that I call the Garberverse. Now, this book starts with a memory, a flashback, and it is Donatella when she's younger with her mother. And we get way more information about Donatella and Scarlet's mum in this book, which is pretty much integral to the plot. I don't know if I made it completely clear that Paloma is like gone, full stop, during book 1. But the girls spent most of their life living on the island of Trisda with their horrible, horrible father. She pulls a face, knowing that saying their father is a bit of a misnomer. This is a spoiler discussion, okay? But let's just say they have the same mum. This flashback memory beginning of the book is about Donatella as a child finding a set of tarot cards that, let me tell you, are super duper 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 important to this story, the entire series. They're a big deal. Donatella's mum is like, put those away, those are dangerous, they are mine, stay away from these special tarot cards. But Donatella has stolen one called the Oracle, and she has kept it on her ever since. And every time she looks at this tarot card, she sees things that are happening, things that are true. The Oracle obviously predicts the future, and she has been using this card kind of throughout her life. Gaslight, gatekeep, and girlboss her way to success so far. Donatella then wakes up, and we are back at the Caraval after party. She wakes up on the ground. She obviously had a very good night, drinking, reveling, next to, guess who? Dante from book 1. Look, I told you, I like Dante. I'm going to keep liking Dante, regardless of everything that we find out about him. Okay, Dante's a real one, okay? She basically leaves Dante and finds Julian and Scarlet, book 1 bays, living in a bedroom together. Julian wants Scarlet and Donatella to accompany him to a very special edition of Caraval that's literally about to take place. There is no big gap between them. They have finished their normal Caraval setup, and then they are going to do a special edition of Caraval for the Empress. Now, Donatella is like, OMG, yes, 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 because the task she has been given is figuring out Legend's real name. Now, if you can't remember, no one knows who Legend is. The main thing we know about Legend is that he is definitely Julian's brother. He and Julian don't necessarily have the best of relationships. Julian was going to leave the Caraval troop and leave Legend behind. We also know, while it may have all been part of the mystery and magic of the initial Caraval, that letters sent to Scarlet from Legend were all signed with D with a little top hat. Now, we could rule this out of contention because the actor who was playing Legend in that round of Caraval, his name was Daniel. So the question is, do we disregard the D completely? Like, is it just a D for Daniel? Or is Legend's real name a name that starts with D? If only there were any other characters whose names started with D that we could start suspecting of being Legend. Donatella has also, on her oracle card, seen her mother. So she is on a mission, complete the task to find out what Legend's true name is, and also find out more information on her missing mother, because clearly the oracle has signified something's going on with her mum. So far, Donatella and Scarlet don't know if their mum's alive, but now that Donatella has seen her mum on the oracle card, she is convinced that her mum is alive and out there in the world somewhere. Scarlet agrees to go with Donatella and Julian to the next round of Caraval, A, because she wants to be with Julian, B, because she's definitely not ditching Donatella after all of the drama of book 1. She's not letting her out of her sight. Even though Scarlet admits there is the chance that she's going to see the Count again, okay? Her fiance that is no longer her fiance, he just maybe doesn't 100% know that yet. Donatella realizes that she has lost a coin that came with the letter she received at the end of Caraval. We start to realize the letter there, the demand and the clue, may not actually have come from Legend himself. Maybe this friend is actually a third party who has an immense amount of power and has wrangled his way into helping Donatella, getting her to the party, and is now demanding something from her. What's really going on, Donatella? Donatella herself doesn't even know. She goes to find the coin, and Dante has found it on the floor, picked it up, and returns it to her, but asks, why have you got this coin? This coin has come from a fate. The magical being that has given you this coin can track you as long as you have it on you. First of all, Dante knows about the fates. What are the fates? We haven't even discussed them yet, but don't worry, they're coming. And Donatella admits to the reader that, oh my God, she really likes Dante, okay? We've only seen bits of him through book 1. See, Donatella, she's a fan. She spent the party with him. She's getting good vibes. She likes him more than she knows she should, you know? Donatella sees the Count, like, as everyone is there after the after party, and she goes over to him, but Julian grabs her and is like, babe, I have a secret. That isn't the real Count. And you find out that they just had an actor play the Count during the last Caraval. So Scarlet's real fiance has no idea what's just gone down. Like, legit. She's decided to sack him off, be with Julian, and the Count, the real Count, has no idea. And part of the decision Scarlet's made to be with Julian isn't necessarily in response to things that the Count, the not real Count, did during the game in the last Caraval, but her decision was informed in part because there was kind of a moment where he was going to SA her, and Julian basically begs Donatella not to admit that the person Scarlet thinks is the Count isn't the Count, okay? Because he doesn't want her to second guess her decision to be with him. Okay, this is slightly shady, but I do kind of get it. Julian, like, get the girl, okay? But for Scarlet, this is really bad. But as I've said before, I personally believe Scarlet is a much better sister to Donatella than Donatella is to Scarlet. Because Donatello's response isn't, how dare you expect me to lie to my sister? Okay, sisters before misters. No, Donatello's like, well, I will keep this secret if you tell me Legend's real name. She's so shady. Oh, I mean, I don't like Donatella, but I do like Donatella. You know? Julian's like, look, I 100% am not allowed to do that. I cannot tell you Legend's name. However, what I can do is tell you that Nigel, the fortune teller, he's going to be able to help you out, babe. He's like, okay, I'm not going to help you keep the secret, but I'm not going to mention what I know to Scarlet. Thanks for the heads up. Goes off to find Nigel. Nigel's like, okay, let's make a trade. And Donatella, who maybe hasn't quite got the experience of these trades that her sister Scarlet has, is like, yeah, sure, whatever. And he's like, psych, I want your rest. And she's like, I don't know what that means, but give me some info, Nige, ma'am. And Nigel's like, look, the winner of the next round at Caraval will meet Legend in person. Like, he will greet them as the winner, like he was kind of meant to do for your game. So if you go to the Caraval that we're hosting for the Empress, this special edition, then you could win the game and then you'll know Legend's real name. Like, you'll know his identity. You'll know who the real Legend is. Donatello's like, OMG, sweet. Here is my plan. Scarlet had to win the last Caraval in order to save me, build up her confidence, yada, yada, yada. I goaded Legend successfully. And now I need to win this next Caraval so that I can find out Legend's true name and get these slightly threatening letters off of my back. The question is, like, is it Legend who's goading her or is it someone else? But then, very much reminiscent to what happened with Scarlet, with giving up her time in book 1. Nigel's like, psych, I'm gonna take your rest right now. And she's basically going to sleep for 4 days. So she stumbles back. Where does she go? Dante's bedroom. Oh, I just passed out here. I know what you're up to, Donatella, okay? I see through you. And when she wakes up, 4 whole days have passed and Scarlet and Julian are looking after her. She is in Scarlet's bedroom. And Scarlet is like, woman, why have you been swept off your feet by this Dante? Okay? What is going on with you? You are a boy-obsessed girl. And Tella's like, nah, Scarlet, I'm not that into Dante. He's not even a good kisser. Okay, the shade. And let me tell you, I mention this because it's super relevant. Like, it's gonna come back to play. Donatella tells Scarlet, babe, don't worry about the boys. I'm here because I want to win the next Caraval. We could do it together, you know, considering the fact that Scarlet is already a winner, but Julian's like, do not let her play. So Donatella's like, actually, maybe I want to do this solo. Maybe I want to do this on my own. So this round of Caraval is taking place in Valenda. And as they're going to the event, Donatella gets in like a carriage, some kind of coach, with a very mysterious guy. He's handsome, he's blonde, he's eating apples. Wasn't it Jax? And I have to admit, because I read these books as Once Upon a Broken Heart was coming out, right? I knew that this character Jax was great. Everyone was like really into him and everyone was really happy he was getting his own books. The moment I saw him, I was like, I know who this is. You cannot trick me. This is Jax. He hasn't given a name yet, and he's a bit of a cocky. I was going to swear then. Let's just say he's got cojones, okay? He just immediately has so much charisma. Like, the riz is off the scale, and you're like, who are you? I don't normally like blondes, but for this blonde, I will make an exception. Literally, with so little screen time, I was immediately hooked. I could tell straight away why people liked this character so much, why so many women were like, yes, we're getting more Jax. Okay, and this is before I really knew anything about him or is there any other things he did. Just from their first like little chat in the coach, I was like, I dig it. if you don't want to read all these books, but you have them and you're a fan of Jax, I recommend reading The Coach scene alone for that little first, like, oh my God, he's arrived. But let's just say it isn't immediately obvious to Donatella, etc. And if you know who Jax is, it is kind of a big spoiler for the reveals coming up, because at the minute, he is a random stranger, and we have several reveals to come. They get off the coach carriage, whatever it was. In my head, I thought it was like the Air Emirates cart. It's like not actually a real coach, but like a Ferris wheel kind of cart thing. Oh, my brain. What is going on here? It's obviously like a normal coach and cart, but upon first reading, I imagined that they were like up in the air in a cart. Maybe I'm right. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. But it was cool. What's so funny is that from her first interaction with Jax, Donatella's was like, does this guy have something to do with the game? Okay, something else is going on. Hi, Mom. Hello. Yeah. Hold on. Just let me stop recording. Okay, that just happened. It has been a considerable amount of time. Okay, I wasn't going to ignore my mom. So yeah, sorry, a little break there. I hope you don't mind. It's not as if I could ignore her. Please, it's my mother. And we were talking about a very important part in the book. So, as I've come back down to record, I was like, actually, this whole thing about them being sky coaches, I'm pretty certain I was right. So I found it. Okay, my general policy is, as we're doing these series of discussions, right? If I can't remember it from the book, it's probably not even worth us talking about. Okay? I know you're going to be watching this like, oh, what happens? You talk about play? That happens and that happens. Okay. Right? We've not got time to go through absolutely every single thing, a teeny tiny thing that happens in these books. And if it's not embedded somewhere in my memory, then it clearly wasn't important enough. Okay? But this I thought, I'm certain. I'm sure that it is a coach, but it's up in the sky. And then I thought maybe my brain is tricking me. So, seeing as this also doubles up as Jax's introduction, I figured I would consult the book. And I'm delighted to tell you that my memory did not, in fact, do me dirty. I thought I was going crazy. It is a sky car. It's like the Emirates, like a conveyor. Yeah. You sometimes have them at amusement parks where the carts hang from a chain and you go from one place to another. Up in the sky. It is one of those carts. I was right. But okay, first description of Jax you get in this book. And if you haven't read Once Upon a Broken Heart, or you aren't aware of what goes on in those books, you're probably like, Christy, why are you giving this guy so much attention? Okay, Jax is epic. But the first description of him in this is the only other passenger was a golden-haired young man Teller didn't recognize. Intrigued, suspicion. He was only a few years older than her, yet he looked as if he'd spent centuries practicing disinterest. Even his rumpled velvet tailcoat appeared bored as he lounged against the plush leather seats. Oh, my casual king. And straight away, intentionally looking away from Teller, he bit into an intensely white apple. You can't ride in here. You can sit with us. God, he's so awful. He's so mean in these books. I love him so much. You heard me clearly. You need to get out. His drawl was as lazy as his cavalier posture, making Teller think that either he was completely careless or this young man was so used to people hanging on his words, he didn't even try to sound commanding. Spoilt nobleman. That's what she's thinking. Oh, baby. Oh, baby, no. No. The young noble responded with a mild tilt of his golden head, followed by a slow curl of narrow lips, as if he'd bitten into a mealy part of his apple. Just leave the coach, warned a voice in her head. He's more dangerous than he looks. Oh, Donatella, okay? You don't understand. You don't understand. She's just judging him like, prissy little rich boy. And if you know who he is, you're like, oh, babe, no. You must be one of Legend's performers. The young man might have laughed, but it sounded too cruel for Teller to be sure. He leaned across the intimate space, filling the carriage with the sharp scent of apples and irritation. I wonder if you could help me with something I've been curious about, he continued. I've heard Legends performers never truly die, which we know from book 1. So maybe I'll push you out to see if the rumors are true. When, like, he is serious. He's a bad one. And it goes, Teller didn't know if the young man's threat was serious, but it was too tempting to hold back from saying, not if I shove you first. She's a ballsy queen, okay? That is Teller's, like, defining trait. Okay, Donatella is just... she's got cojones. Donatella has cojones. This earned her a flash of dimples. You don't understand. Yeah. He's just wonderful. That might have been charming, yet somehow they managed to look unkind, like a winking gemstone in the hilt of a double-edged sword. Teller couldn't decide if his features were too sharp to be attractive, or if he was just the sort of handsome that hurt to look at, the devastating type of lovely that would slit your throat while you were staring into its cold quicksilver eyes. Like, come on, okay? He's so bad. And he says to her, careful, pet. You might be one of the Empress's guests, but many in her court are not as forgiving as I am. And I'm not forgiving at all. We know this to be true. We know it. He holds a grudge. He is about to hold a lot of grudges. Crunch. Sharp teeth took another bite of his white apple before he let it slip from his fingers and drop onto her slippers. We have our first discarded Jack's apple, okay? If you know Jack's, it's an ongoing thing. He's eating apples all the time. This is the first apple we ever see devoured by Jax, guys. If you're not as much of a Jax stan as I am, you're probably annoyed at how much attention I'm giving him. But I read this knowing that this character was getting his own series, and I hadn't even heard the name Jax yet. And I was like, this has to be him. This has to be it. He's just so dynamic on the page. I don't think he says much else. No, he doesn't. Across from her, the lazing nobleman ignored her as she slipped out the door into the cavernous carriage house. He just leaves her. He just leaves her there. And you're going, that was a lot of attention to like a random side character. Probably because he's not a side character at all, okay? Jax, we're this far into the book, okay? And Jax is about to become one of the biggest problems in this book, in the world, in the series. He is a problem, a big one. And so, yeah, that was our first intro to Jax. Stephanie's just laid the groundwork there for so much that's going to come back. Obviously, something more going on to him, and Donatella can tell that straight away, and so can we, the readers. It's like, what's going on here? Interest? It's more than just peaked, okay? It is like full-blown alarm bells, like, ding, ding, ding. Who is this magical, handsome, glorious man who's really, really mean? So after this just brilliant introduction to Jax, okay, Teller is off of the cart, which wasn't in her cart. I'm so happy I remembered that right. Thank you. Validation! She goes to the door and they do not let her in, okay? She isn't allowed in the palace. She's not allowed to festivities. She is not on the guest list. But Dante, swoops on in and lies. Another lie, just like Julian did in book 1, where he's like, she's my fiance. Okay? Instead, Dante's like, oh, don't you know who she is? She is the heir's fiance. And it turns out that the Empress, obviously, has an heir that we've heard nothing about yet. And he implies to everybody that Donatella is marrying the Empress's heir. I don't think I've said it already, but the Empress's name is like Elentine. And so this mysterious character, who is not yet identified, is called Elentine's heir. And Donatella now starts the ruse that she is going to be marrying the future emperor or empress, let's be honest, of the world. I mean, the world, it just didn't feel right to say of the Empire. But yeah, Elentine's heir. She's implying, and she's got to keep up the ruse that she's going to marry Elentine's heir, and everyone's treating her very nicely because of this. Donatella gets put in this like special bedroom. Everyone's being really nice to her, and all of a sudden, a package arrives of a dress from Elentine's heir, and the note says they have heard that Donatella's going around claiming to be their fiance, so they've sent a dress. They ask that she wears it to the party tonight, so that they'll know exactly who she is and can get to meet her and play along. So she puts on this absolutely gorgeous dress. It's like flowers. It's a vibe. And as she's going to the party, she bumps into Dante, and Dante is like not cool with this at all. And he admits that the story he's told, his lie about her being the heir's fiance, is literally like the worst possible thing he could have done. He's really like, oh nah, regrets, you know? And he admits that he came up with it in the spur of the moment because he was angry because Scarlett had mentioned that Donatella said Dante was like a really bad kisser. Well, Dante is admitting that he's kind of messed up, and now Donatella's in this really bad situation just because Dante was having like insecure, jealous moment. Armando, the actor who played the Count in the first round of Caraval, comes up to them and's like, oh, I've just had a conversation with Scarlett. And they're like, you've done what? And it turns out like he assumed that by now Scarlett would have realized that all of Caraval wasn't real and that he wasn't the real Count. So the ruse is up. It really doesn't last very long in the book. And so obviously Scarlett and Julian are now fighting.